Lie down next to me and don't breathe. My grandmother's whisper was barely louder than the ticking of the old grandfather clock above the fireplace. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. When I walked into the living room, she was lying flat on the floor, motionless. My heart nearly stopped. I thought she'd collapsed, maybe worse. But then her eyes opened. Quiet, stay still, please, she whispered again, grabbing my sleeve with surprising strength. Lie down next to me, right now. My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 32, and if you think you know how this ends, stick around. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you never questioned the small, strange things around you? Until one moment suddenly connects all of it. I hesitated for only a second. Then I slowly lowered myself down onto the cold hardwood floor, next to my grandmother. The floorboards smelled faintly of lemon polish and old dust. My cheek pressed against the rug, while the old clock above us kept ticking. Tick, tick. Grandma squeezed my hand once. Don't move, she breathed. 5 minutes passed in heavy silence. Then the front door opened. Footsteps entered the house. My wife's voice drifted through the hallway. Casual, almost cheerful. Nathan, you home already? My grandmother's fingers tightened, and in that moment, something terrifying became clear to me. She hadn't been pretending to be unconscious to scare me. She had been waiting for my wife. Grandma's grip around my wrist grew firmer. Not painful, just enough to keep me still. The hallway light clicked on, and my wife's footsteps came closer across the hardwood floor, slow, unhurried. The soft clack of her heels echoed through the quiet house. Nathan, she called again. I didn't answer. My cheek was still against the rug. I could smell the faint scent of lavender from the old fabric and hear the steady tick-tick-tick of the grandfather clock above the fireplace. Then the footsteps stopped at the entrance to the living room. For a second, nothing happened. Then my wife gasped, "Oh my God, Grandma." Her voice broke perfectly. Exactly the right amount of a panic. If I hadn't been lying right there next to my grandmother, I would have believed it. She rushed forward. I heard the rustle of her coat as she knelt down beside us. "Grandma, can you hear me?" she said quickly. My grandmother didn't move, neither did I. A long silence followed. Then something strange happened. The panic in my wife's voice disappeared. Her breathing steadied, and when she spoke again, her tone was completely different. Flat. "All right," she murmured quietly. That was easier than expected. My stomach clenched, held out. What was she talking about? The needle packaging crinkled. Then she said something that froze the blood in my veins. Nathan should have listened when I told him we needed to sell this house. My pulse thundered in my ears. Sell the house. This was my grandmother's home. My father grew up here. This place meant everything to her. And suddenly I understood something. My wife had never liked this house. She hated that it was in my grandmother's name. Hated that she had no claim to it. The syringe drew closer. I heard the quiet compression of fluid into the chamber. Then my wife whispered softly, "Don't worry. After this, the paperwork will be real simple." My grandmother's nails dug into my wrist. One final time. A signal. Now. I opened my eyes and said the one word that made the entire room freeze. "Claire." The word barely left my mouth, but it hit the room like shattering glass. My wife froze. For a fraction of a second, the syringe hovered in the air above my grandmother's arm. Her eyes widened slowly, the look of someone realizing the floor beneath them had just disappeared. "Nathan," her voice cracked. I pushed myself up from the carpet. My lungs finally filled with air. The living room felt suddenly colder than it had a moment before. The old grandfather clock ticked on behind me like a witness refusing to leave. Tick, tick, tick. Claire's eyes darted between me and my grandmother. The color drained from her face. "You are lying there." I said nothing. Grandma slowly opened her eyes beside me and sat up with surprising calm, smoothing the sleeve of her cardigan as if she'd just finished a nap. Claire's hand was trembling. The syringe shifted slightly in her fingers. "What is that?" I asked quietly. "It's insulin," she stammered. Grandma looked like she'd collapsed. I thought maybe... Stop. My voice came out colder than I expected. "Claire, my grandmother isn't diabetic." Silence filled the room for the first time since I'd known her. Claire looked genuinely afraid. Her eyes darted to the door, then to the cabinet where the syringe packaging still lay open, then back to me. Nathan, you're misunderstanding this. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. You're the one who misunderstood something. Claire frowned. What do you mean? I stepped back and glanced toward the hallway, because right at that moment someone knocked at the front door. 3 firm, evenly spaced knocks. Claire's eyes shot to the hallway. For a brief moment I saw the calculation behind them. The same rapid thinking she always showed when something unexpected happened. What is that? She asked. I didn't answer. The grandfather clock ticked loudly in the heavy silence behind us. Grandma quietly straightened her glasses and watched Claire with patient stillness. Another knock echoed through the house. Claire forced a small smile. I'll go check, she said quickly and started to stand. But she didn't get far. Claire, I said. She stopped mid-movement. The syringe was still in her hand. Put it down. Her shoulders tensed. Nathan, you're acting crazy right now, she said, attempting a laugh. Your grandmother fainted, and I was trying to help by injecting something she doesn't even need. Her jaw tightened. For a moment it looked like she would argue again. Then came a third knock, louder. Claire slowly turned toward the door. Who even is that? She murmured. I finally answered. People with a lot of questions. Her brows pulled together. What people? Before I could respond, the door opened. 2 men stepped inside. Dark jackets, calm faces. Badges flashed briefly in the hallway light. Claire stared at them, confused. One of the agents looked from the syringe in her hand to my grandmother sitting quietly on the floor. Then he spoke. Claire Morgan. Her face went white. The agent nodded once. We're with the FBI. Claire didn't move. The syringe was still in her hand, tilted slightly toward the floor. A small drop of a clear liquid clung to the needle tip, catching the faint yellow light from the hallway. Both agents stepped fully into the living room. Calm, controlled, a presence that made the room feel suddenly smaller. Miss Morgan, the taller agent repeated in an even voice. We need you to set the syringe on the table. Claire blinked rapidly. This is ridiculous, she said. My husband's grandmother collapsed, and I was only trying to... She's not diabetic, the agent interrupted. Claire went quiet. The grandfather clock ticked loudly behind us. Grandma slowly straightened up and moved to a chair, brushing the dust from her cardigan, as if this entire scene were merely a minor inconvenience. Claire's eyes moved to me, then to Grandma, then back to the agents. You called them? She asked me, disbelief thick in her voice. I nodded once. Her laugh came out sharp. Nathan, do you actually believe I was going to hurt her? She fainted, and I was trying to help by injecting something she doesn't even need. Her jaw tightened. For a moment, it looked like she'd push back again. The larger agent stepped forward and carefully took the syringe from her hand. We'll determine that, he said. Claire crossed her arms and forced herself back to composure. You're wasting your time, she muttered. Nothing illegal is happening here. The second agent opened a small evidence bag. That's interesting, he said quietly. Claire frowned. Why? Because according to the lab results we received today, the liquid in this syringe is not a medication. The room went still. The agent sealed the bag and looked directly at Claire. It's potassium chloride. Grandma drew a sharp breath. Claire's face lost every trace of color. Potassium? Her voice was barely audible. The agent held the sealed evidence bag up to the light. The syringe inside gleamed faintly as the grandfather clock continued its rhythm behind us, a metronome marking every second of silence. Potassium chloride, he repeated calmly. In sufficient doses, it stops the heart. Grandma's fingers gripped the armrests of her chair. Claire shook her head quickly. That's insane, she said. I don't even know what that is. The second agent stepped forward and placed a thin folder on the coffee table. Inside were printed pages, bank records, property documents. Claire's confident posture began to crumble. We've been investigating cases of financial coercion connected to property transfers, the agent explained. Your name came up after an attorney reported unusual estate requests regarding this property. Claire stared at the documents. You're twisting things, she said, but her voice was weaker now. I spoke for the first time in several minutes. You asked Grandma to sign new documents last month. Claire looked sharply at me. That was just estate planning. Grandma leaned slowly forward. No, she said quietly. That was your attempt to get me to transfer this house into your name. The agent nodded toward the folder. And when she refused, we believe you planned something else. Claire's eyes darted again, to the door, to the window, then back to the agents. You can't prove anything, she whispered. The larger agent closed the folder calmly. Actually, we can. He pointed to the small black camera on the bookshelf. Claire followed his finger and finally noticed it. Claire stared at the small black camera, as if it had materialized out of thin air. For a moment, nobody spoke. The grandfather clock above the fireplace ticked on, steady, patient, almost satisfied. Tick, tick, tick. That, Claire said slowly, pointing at the shelf. What is that? The FBI agent didn't even turn around. That, he answered calmly, is evidence. Her face went pale. You recorded this. I nodded, not angry, not dramatic, just quiet. Claire looked again at the camera, then at the evidence folder on the table, then at the sealed bag with the syringe. Her shoulders finally dropped. The confidence she always carried, the poise, the quick excuses, all of it seemed to dissolve in one silent moment. Grandma folded her hands in her lap. I told you, she said gently, looking at Claire with tired eyes. Some houses remember the truth. Claire swallowed hard. You set me up, she whispered. No, I answered. You did that yourself. The agent stepped forward. Claire Morgan, one of them said in a firm voice. You are under arrest for attempted murder and fraud. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed through the room. Outside, the evening light slipped through the curtains and cast long shadows across the old hardwood floor. Grandma looked at me and smiled softly. Good thing you listened when I told you to lie down. The clock ticked once more, and for the first time all day, the house finally felt still.